Hey, Trev.
Hey, Amy.
How's it going?
Did Graham say he was coming to this?
Well, I was wondering. He has accepted the invite. So yeah, we'll give him a few minutes.
Okay.
Hey, Graham.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How you doing?
Too bad.
How are things going over there?
Yeah, pretty good. We're more or less living a pretty normal life at the moment, I guess, all things considered. I know that you're probably more of the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yep, unfortunately, yeah. We're getting used to just staying inside for like the next 3 months. So yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, no, we're basically I'm trying to think if there's any restrictions at the moment. I think there's some general restrictions, but yeah, even like public events like football games and stuff is back on, and so
Wow, nice. Lucky you.
yeah. How about yourself, Jav? I remember you mentioned like a month ago or so ago, you guys were going back into lockdown. Are you guys out again?
Yeah, we keep on dithering between
Yeah.
various states of lockdown, I would say.
Yeah,
We've always been in lockdown. Currently, the new strain from the UK is slowly getting into the country, so they're talking about moving us back to a full lockdown. But for now, stores are closed, but you can order online and order
right.
online for
Yeah.
restaurants. And there's movement restrictions, curfew, all this stuff. So it sucks, but you can see my co-working space is open, which is nice. So I can still at least, yeah.
Cool. So we've got a few suggestions, but if there's anything else you want to cover on this as well, Graham, then happy
Sure.
to.
Yep.
Do you want to start, Jav? Like whatever's the most interesting topic.
Yeah, sure, Graham. So I take this opportunity with you here to talk a little bit about some of the issues we're facing with the WebSocket service. We're seeing errors. We're seeing errors on pod cycles, and I've done some testing on pre-prod, and I can reproduce this. And apparently, it looks like that we start to see 500 errors when old pods are terminated while new pods are ready to take traffic.
Yep.
Maybe I can demonstrate this in real time and show you or show everyone.
Silly question. The WebSockets are not going to be like aren't they long-lived connections? Like, are they going to be terminated? But that should still be, I guess, a terminate cleanly. And so what we're seeing here is something different. Is it just like our side closes the connection, like just hard closes it all?
This was my first instinct, was like, okay, this is just WebSockets. It's particularly bad because it's WebSockets. And I talked to the developers and they're like, well, it doesn't really matter. We handled these failures gracefully. The client will just retry and it will gracefully degrade as well. So that's why we've just silenced all of the alerts around these errors on the service. And, but what's interesting though is that I can take WebSockets out of the equation and I'm still seeing errors.
Okay, cool.
Which is not so nice. First question maybe for you, which I'm still not 100% clear on. PDB, pod disruption budget. If we set the max, we default this to a max unavailable of 1 pod. I understand PDB to be important for evictions.
Yeah.
Is it also used for when you make a configuration change and
it rolls the replica set?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I believe that
I don't believe so either.
Yeah, the surge settings and everything, and that kind of like the max surge and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think. Those settings have moved. They've moved around a bit. I think as the specification for a deployment have changed. But I'm happy to admit I'm by no means a deep expert on PDBs. And once again, there's something that's changed a lot as the spec has grown. But my understanding is no, that shouldn't. The PDB should be taking effect for just the standard. Okay, we're rolling out a new set of pods.
Okay, so yeah, because I kind of I freaked out a little bit yesterday because this service is unique in that we only have 1 pod running per cluster.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that, well, we have 3 clusters, so we have AZ coverage. So there's really 3 pods total.
Yeah.
There didn't seem to be a reason. With our default spec, there's no way we would scale up to more than 1 pod. I mean, we basically have a min pod of 1. And we're sticking at 1. So I thought that, okay, maybe this is part of the problem. So I bumped that to 2 yesterday, but it seems like we're still seeing errors. But going back to having one pod, min replica of 1, or min max replica of 1, let's say, and we do a configuration change, we shouldn't have any interruption, right? That's
no, you're right. So sorry, refresh my memory. The WebSockets is still the full Cloudflare, HA proxy, everything else?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, but not that different. It goes HA proxy to the service endpoint directly, no Nginx ingress.
Okay. And
we made this
still
change
Cloudflare?
Yeah, Cloudflare is in front.
Cool. Yes.
So I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
And we'll do a little live test right now. So upper right, this is the pre-prod cluster. You can see that we have 2 Git web service pods, 1 web service pod, and then here's our WebSockets pod. Yeah. I've gone ahead and adjusted the settings by hand. I'll set them back when I'm done, just because I want to make sure that the PDB max unavailable. I made max unavailable 1. I guess this doesn't matter, you said though, right? I could make this I mean, I could set this to 1 and it's fine. I had set it to 0 just to be kind of paranoid, but I'll just set that to the default. Let's look at the deployment. So should be here somewhere. Okay, well, I think we're good. So we have one WebSockets pod. And what I'm going to do is just use this little load testing tool, which sends traffic to the service endpoint, which is directly to Workhorse.
Okay, so this is going to this is from one of the HA proxy nodes to the Google ILB that sits in front of Workhorse.
Exactly. So I'm sending it to this external IP on port 8181, which is Workhorse. So this is going, correct, this is going through. So if I just stop this, I can see that I'm getting all 200. This rate is not very, it's 10 requests a second. The duration is 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to do that. And
then roll a
now
pod somehow.
Yeah, I'm going to just do like
an annotation or something maybe. Or maybe not an annotation. But...
Yeah, let's see. Did I have it here? Yeah. So I'm just going to set this end variable to true. And so in the upper right.
Yep.
Oops, I'll get out of here. So now we have the new pod coming up. The old pod is running. So so far everything is fine. I'm still only seeing 200s. These pods
so this is doing the init container. That is a long time to the init container. Oh, I guess is the WebSockets pod itself running like a full Rails stack or something?
It is.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Very sad, but yeah, it's running Workhorse and Rails. It's basically the same. It's just the same as the Git container.
Gotcha.
Or the Git pod. So you have the web service container, state running, ready true. We have the Workhorse. So I think I misunderstood this. Well, maybe not. This 2 out of 2, this is just the 2 containers, right? The Workhorse and the, okay.
And the,
so now,
well, I mean, I thought one was an init container, but I actually don't know what the 2 containers are.
We have, let's look at the container. So one is Puma for web service. The other one is Workhorse. And then we have a bunch of init containers, and these, we have dependencies and configure.
So sorry, those 2 pods would be Puma and Workhorse then. Sorry, that wouldn't be the init containers.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So we, it takes a long time to terminate. I can do just want to do a quick sanity test. So now we now we see 500s.
Yeah, see, I'm not seeing, I don't know if your screen's frozen or something, but I'm not actually seeing, like I'm not, try sharing it.
Sure.
Maybe it was just my end.
So we have, do you see it now?
No, I'm just seeing a black screen.
Really? Do you see it, Amy?
I did, sorry, hang on, show me again. No, I was before, but now it's.
Yeah, I was seeing it before and then it just kind of froze. And
now you don't.
It's just.
Yes, no. Yes or no? Do you see it now?
No.
No? Oh, Zoom. Now?
No.
Oh, come on.
I mean,
let me try my whole desktop. How about that?
Nah, it's still black.
Yeah, it's still black.
Let me.
I think we can. The takeaway, if I'm hearing it correctly, is it got the video kind of cut out just before that pod came ready. But I assumed that we were seeing 500s during that.
Do you see my browser?
No.
No.
I'm just gonna hop out.
Yeah. Good old Zoom.
Technology, eh?
And it's funny because he was doing like just small text. I thought it was like, it was, I didn't notice it because the picture was still there. Nah, it's still black.
I know,
no,
there
really
we go.
got picture. Yeah, we go. Cool.
Okay, so we still have this pod terminating, but
Yep.
you can see here, I started to see 500s as soon as the
Yeah,
pod
gotcha.
started terminating, even though the new pod was running. And so what's going on here? I guess at first I thought like, okay, the new pod, although it's running, is not really ready to take traffic. That would be my first guess.
Right.
But I tried doing this test with having a min pod of 2, which and
Should
because
let
of our
50%
back
of the
surge,
time.
like exactly. So I still saw the problem. So I think what's happening is that somehow requests are going to the terminating pod, maybe, but I haven't validated that. And I don't see are 502s. I'm sorry, I don't see 503s in the workhorse log. Like I don't see like these requests going to workhorse. It's like they're being rejected at the TCP/LB.
Yeah, which would be, if this was an actual GKE ingress, which is implemented by a layer 7 HTTPS load balancer, then definitely I would point the finger at that. But it should be, because it's layer 4, it shouldn't. That being said, I'm still super suspicious about the ILB. I've been looking into them a little bit just in general at all this stuff. And yeah, I am suspicious. I am suspicious that there can be gaps. So the way the ILB works is there's a controller that's running the Kubernetes masters, which we don't see, that looks at the service endpoint and looks at the endpoint maps and updates Google's ILB. But if it is slower, like if it's slow in syncing that, then the ILB's list of peers, I guess you could say, or endpoints, may be slower. The second thing is this a new service? The service object it's pointing to Can you actually show me the Kubernetes definition for that? I want to see what Google's annotations they've put on it, if any are, because I have a suspicion as well.
So you want to see this service?
WebSockets one.
Yeah.
That one, yeah. Okay, so they haven't put any. Okay, that's fine. I was just checking they haven't put any additional annotations on it or something, because they're starting to do with GCP 1.17. They're starting to force all services to do pod native load balancing, and they're switching from using instance groups and kube proxy to trying to push everyone to network endpoint groups. That is only for new services that's created. So that's only for new services that's created. So if this was created before, say, the 117 upgrade, it shouldn't be an issue. But what it does mean is they are changing per release how the internals of how ILBs work. Do we think, is it even possible that do we think this issue has been around for months, or do we think this is a relatively new issue?
I can't say.
Okay.
I don't know, but I haven't really. One is that what's new here is that we're not going through the Nginx ingress anymore. So we're going through the TCP/LB. So maybe that's coming into play.
Sure.
That's new. Yeah. Other than that, I can't think of anything else.
That's fine.
But I really thought this was sort of a boring configuration. I didn't think that this was anything special, and that I was super surprised that we're seeing problems. I mean, the whole point of removing the Nginx ingress was to make our configuration less complicated and to like remove that
agreed.
factor, right?
Yeah, so
yeah.
I agree, and I would say this is definitely, if assuming it is an issue with the ILB and not something else, then I would definitely say this is like a failure, like a bug or something, because it's obviously it shouldn't be happening. I'm interested. Look, in the interest of keeping this meeting, spiraling out into a debugging session, it's really good for me to see this. I'm actually interested now in going to look through Stackdriver and poke some of the GCP, like get some of the GCP settings from the ILB that actually implements this, and just have a look and see if we can confirm. Because what I would like to see is, in theory, the ILB that this maps to, which we should be able to see in the GCP console, what we would expect to see is the backends for it is all the nodes in the cluster and whatever the node port is on this server. So what's the node port here? It should be somewhere here. 81 node port 30898, I think, is the.
Yeah, that's the workhorse node port. Yeah, I can.
Have we actually got multiple work? No. Okay. Yep.
So there's lots of ports here. But it's because we have a bunch of service ports defined for the exporters.
Okay. But yeah, I would double check that what we're seeing on the ILB side matches, and that configuration is not for whatever reason changing. I wonder if I can actually watch Stackdriver as well to see if it thinks that the endpoints flap up and down at all, because once again, they shouldn't. And if we do see that, then that would be something else that's suspicious.
That's what I was going to look at as well. So unfortunately, Google doesn't make it easy.
Yeah, no, their ILB stuff is really difficult because they've got it's actually implemented by just like routes and URL maps and a bunch of other stuff. It's actually a bit abstract the way they kind of implement it.
Yeah.
The other thing it would be interesting is I think I'm not sure, I'd have to check if we actually have access into the pod network itself and doing the test against the pod IP for the pod that is terminating, like directly straight to the pod, and see what that kind of gives you. Like, obviously it's going to error and then eventually fail to connect, but what does that actually look like?
I see.
What error codes do we see? I guess trying to work through those bits and pieces, because
once we've got a few ideas or we've eliminated a few things, why don't we also ask our we have a TAM, right, at GCP?
We should definitely reach out to them and say, yeah, this is
like, is it known?
Yeah. Nothing special on the load balancer. Like, this is, I was looking at this yesterday.
I think your screen's frozen again, but.
Really? What's going on with Zoom? That sucks.
It's okay. Yeah. No, it's black screen now again.
Huh. Well, anyway, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time today troubleshooting this.
Do we think we only see this for WebSockets as well? Like, in theory, we should be seeing this.
Well, okay,
and
so there is.
Yeah.
I think there's a key difference here, right? Because in our other configurations, we have an internal ILB, but it's in front of Nginx. And Nginx is like always available.
So yeah, sure. But it kind of internally buffers between the pods. Then
Yeah, but it's funny because we were definitely seeing a lot of errors on Nginx pod churning, and what we did is we just upped the resource allocation so that we never scale Nginx. So that's very stable. But that doesn't help us here because now we're bypassing Nginx.
Yeah, sure.
And so, so this is kind of good. It's good that we're seeing it for WebSockets because, like I said, like errors here don't really matter too much. At least that's what I've been told. So, but it's still like something we should get to the bottom of, especially if we're gonna. My intention is to move HTTPS Git to this configuration.
Oh yeah, definitely.
but I don't want to if like I
No.
can't.
No,
we're
this
seeing
is
problems.
yeah, crazy because as you said, this is a completely boring. This should be an absolutely bulletproof, rock solid configuration or setup. Like if we're seeing these problems, whether with Nginx in front of it or without, or we need to make sure the pod communication is working as we expect.
But this is why I'm suspicious, because it's so boring. Like, okay, come on, why hasn't anyone else reported this? And this is why I think that there could be a delay between the time that a pod is ready and the time that a pod is able to accept traffic, and that would explain it, right? Like the the new pod is ready, the old pod is terminated, but if there's nowhere for traffic to go because the new pod isn't actually ready, then that would explain 500.
Yeah, that would explain it.
So
and something's giving the 503, right? Because that's the other thing too. It's like,
yeah,
in theory, a layer 4 load balancer can't give us a 503 to give us connection refused or connection closed or something.
So what I would love to do is be able to see the health of the backends. I think you were saying this too, like see the health of the backends in real time, like to see when of the L4 layer, the layer 4 load balancer, to see when like the load balancer is dropping them, right? Like because the load balancer has a health check, right? Or not? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but the load balancer in theory, so let me think. So the load balance,
yeah,
it's just going to point to all the nodes and not change.
Yeah, you're right. And those nodes are always going to be healthy.
Yeah, it's right. Kube proxy, which manipulates the IP table rules between. Yeah. So when traffic hits a node, Kube proxy will manipulate the IP table rules to say you can or cannot go to this pod, and Kube proxy syncs from the Kubernetes API. And in theory, there could be lag there, but once again, that would be a huge Kubernetes bug that a lot of people would pick up on, you would think. So
right.
There is setups where you can do this, like basically you get rid of Kube proxy, which is what I've done for k8s and stuff. I set it up so using this kind of, because it's a new service and I had some time, I set it up using container native load balancing and stuff. And so when you look on the old load balancer, the actual pods themselves, like their IPs and ports are the backend. And so if you have 1,000 pods, you'll see 1,000 backends. k8s is obviously only 2, so it's not a big deal. But it was much easier to see what it thinks is up and down, because it's like, okay, it thinks that's down because I got the health check wrong or something, rather than, and it just bypasses Kube proxy. That being said, I don't think we should be doing something as drastic as that for this problem, because this should just work. So we need to figure out, you could even do something interesting, like go into the ILB, manually drop every other node out. So there's only one actual physical node listening on a node port that traffic is going to go through. And I don't know, see if that changes anything, see if and if you know that all the traffic is going through the one node, you might be able to watch that kubelets logs or watch that to do a TCP dump. I mean, it really depends on how deep we want to go with this. But at least
it's hard though because there's only one pod. So you'd have to ensure that the pod was running on that node, right?
No, because that's the thing. Kube proxy will will send it to, so it basically, so the whole thing is the ILB does not know how to, the whole point of Kube proxy is that
I see.
Dumb load balancers only know about nodes, and then it can go to any node, and then it's like, oh, well, there's one pod and it's over on node 3. I will mangle the packets and forward them on over to node 3. So at least you'll get that one by doing, all I'm trying to say is, I guess with that, at least you'll bottleneck the incoming connection from the ILB to one node, and maybe that assists us in trying to narrow down more debugging.
I see. Okay, well, I think what I'll do is debug, or I think I'll do some more debugging today. And
like, even if we just did a raw TCP dump but tried to decode for a HTTP 503 header or something, and just find the IP that it's coming from. Because is that like a service IP? Is it a pod IP? Is it like something else? I might have I'm going to have a look at let me know how you go, because I'm definitely interested in poke around this if we have no luck. But we should also definitely squeeze our Google support for this, because this sounds like a fairly standard question they should be able to answer us on.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much all I have, Amy. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Kubernetes upgrade, Graham?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Graham, like your about 1.18 really.
18.
Yeah.
Yep. So once again, I know we'll try and keep it short on this meeting on time. So the short answer is it looks like we've identified at least 2 incidents that could be maybe not alleviated, but helped a lot by GKE 1.18 upgrade.
Yeah.
Talking about that now, it's actually also made me think about this problem as well, because at the moment, one of the things we've highlighted, and even Google have now acknowledged, is the TCP settings they have on all their nodes is incorrect. And so we saw that cause problems with mailroom. And I'm actually wondering, maybe this is crazy. I am actually wondering if that could also be causing some kind of weird connection issues we are seeing, but it probably wouldn't explain the 503, so maybe not. So basically I've done a bunch of the prep work. The only thing, so there's 3 major things that come as part of this upgrade. And actually the next 4 Kubernetes upgrades are going to be more painful than the last ones. They've fully removed a bunch of APIs, API versions for deployments, pods and stuff. So unless we've got manifests that are really old and we've never updated them, we should be fine. I've identified one spot in plant UML, so I'll probably put a merge request up to just,
Yeah, sure.
that chart, and fix that. The second part is they've changed the Ingress spec. So in 1.18, they've finally solidified and got the Ingress spec out of beta. So that's going to change a bunch of stuff. And that's going to be really invasive for the GitLab chart, I believe. But we don't have to do that before the upgrade. That's got to happen after. So, that's another thing we need to do. And then the final issue is they've done a mass rename and changing and removing of metrics. So I asked Anthony to get someone in his team to review, but I think obviously now with him moving on, he hasn't picked up the ticket and he hasn't responded, but I'll get someone from observability to basically go through all of the documentation and confirm that this isn't going to cause metric issues. And then basically I'm ready to green light. Like I've got the MRs ready to do like ops and stuff. And I'm keen to do this as quickly as possible, especially if we think it's causing issues. In the meantime, I have deployed into pre and staging what is essentially like a workaround fix for the TCP issues. So I can actually roll that into production any day now. So basically, it's just deploying a daemon set that runs sysctl to change the settings. So it's like getting that fixed, but now. So that's in pre. It's in staging. So obviously, actually, it's not going to fix this issue because if it's in pre and staging and we're still seeing it, then it doesn't cause it. But I'm ready to put together a change request and roll that out. So that kind of gets the one benefit or one corrective action from the 18 upgrade out there. And then obviously when we upgrade to 18, I'll just remove that fix and keep going. But yeah, besides observability and those little bits I've talked about, which I'm pretty much okay with, I think, we can basically do it whenever.
Is it worth trying to get the daemon set workaround into the chart, the GitLab chart?
Well, it's a question of it's only a GKE specific problem. So
yeah, okay.
Probably not. And to be fair, I guess they're fixing it it's frustrating. I can't get good. Google aren't very informative about when they fix it. Like they've said they fixed it in one release, but I don't know. Are they backporting it to 1.17? I'm not sure. I can probably ask them, but yeah, I think we want to do the 1.18 upgrade sooner because what's going to happen is eventually they'll force us to do it, and that's what happened with the 1.17 upgrade. And it was a little bit more, nerve-wracking being forced to do it rather than doing it on our own terms.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though it's GKE specific, maybe. Yeah, I don't know if we have chart documentation that's specific to provider, but maybe we should, because it sounds like for anyone who's trying to run our chart on GKE, this is probably something they'd want to know, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I definitely think not only that, right? Like all these issues we're talking about with like Nginx and ILBs and stuff. And I know from working with Amazon and some of the other cloud providers, they do also have, they have their own annotations, they have their own setups, they have their own kind of, so I don't know, maybe even a documentation section on the GitLab, chart or GitLab docs or something about different provider specific problems. But I feel like we should be capturing this. I do agree. Like this is.
Yeah. Do you want to open an issue for that, Jarv, and maybe see what distribution think?
Sure.
Yes. Cool. Okay.
What do you think is are you going to be driving the GKE upgrade, Graham?
Sure.
You will be? Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think is your time frame for starting it? And
yeah. Look, honestly, the biggest blocker at the moment is just getting observability to confirm that, we're not going to lose metrics. Because last time I did the 17 upgrade, suddenly a bunch of dashboards stopped working and I was scrambling to fix it. So I'd like to get ahead of that this time. So once tomorrow, I'm going to sit down and probably get most of the merge requests ready, honestly. And, as soon as I get the kind of rubber stamp from observability, I can probably do it next week. I think I can fit it in next week, or I'm on call next week. So it would probably, that actually doesn't work out too badly, because if things break, I like being the person on call when I do it, because, at least I get to get the alerts and fix it. So I would like to at least get the smaller environments, like even pre or ops or anything that's not too big, like underway, next week would be great.
Okay, cool. That sounds good.
I'll ask Brent about the metrics side, see if we can get that prioritized then. Because it'd be great to get this upgrade, you think?
Yeah.
Do we think we're going to have to do some ugly things with the chart, because we'll have maybe new API versions that will support new features that aren't compatible with previous Kubernetes versions? And
it's a good question. So I'd probably need to look in depth. Do we have a policy actually on what Kubernetes versions we support? Because technically speaking, like all the versions we've run are like, with the exception of Red Hat and OpenShift, because we'll support it long after upstream support it model. I don't think we should be having to support that many old versions, like maybe 16 and 15, 17 and 16. And I think we're okay, but you're right, we should double check or have a way to figure that out a bit better.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think we do support explicit versions, but we'll have to talk to distribution to see.
I'm hoping not. Fingers crossed we shouldn't. And yeah.
Okay. Cool. Anything else?
Could I go ahead?
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead, Graham, if you have something.
I was going to say, I don't think, just small questions. With the GitLab com repo that we still can't take changes off master yet, is that still being held up on this like WebSockets and moving Nginx and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's the problem. We really need to figure this out. I'm hoping by the end of this week we'll understand better this issue that we're seeing and whether we want to move forward with the Git HTTPS Nginx bypass. My hope is we do that, and then we can just upgrade the Nginx ingress controller, which is going to be a no-op. If we can't do that, then we need to just do a cluster by cluster upgrade, which is really not that bad. I mean, we've done it twice already. It's just kind of high touch, that's all.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because, just want to start getting some more changes in, but that's fine. The only other thing, actually, I realized we only got 5 minutes. So I'll mention this briefly. Let me see if I can share my screen. So I've been spending a bit of my spare time playing around with, is this going to work? Yeah, cool. Playing around. So we've got an issue open. If I can. Basically, I kind of talked about this a few months ago, decoupling Helm file executions and syncing from Chef. So I actually had a little bit of spare time And I actually had a crack at implementing it and basically using JSON it to actually, so that values from external sources, instead of being a Go template, being JSON it essentially, and just passing the values in and using JSON it to pull them out. The very short answer is it looks promising. There's still some kind of warts and stuff and not so good pieces to it, but it was actually really, oops, if I can actually find the JSON it file. So basically what I've got in this commit, and I can pop it in the doc. Here we go, here's the JSON it old views file. But as you can see here, I just basically pull in a bunch of stuff with using JSON's external variables, which is the chef roles. So all of the chef roles are JSON. I pull the load balancer IPs from the Google API also as JSON. And then it makes it so easy to just manipulate and pull out all the values. I don't need to shell out to JQ. I don't need to do any of the other stuff. And so you can see here, all these settings, I've just got like chef rails conf, which is just, default attributes, Omnigus, GitLab, GitLab RB. And so then you can just see all of this is basically just all those settings mapped to the values we need. So it becomes a little bit nicer, a little bit easier to read. Doing conditionals based off things like Redis configuration, it also becomes a lot easier. There's actually there's other YAML files we have, like the init values YAML and stuff, which contains a whole bunch of, we have a lot of very awkward logic that we do in Go templating. And I'm playing around with the idea of using JSON it because it's a bit higher level and has got some nice features for us to make that simpler. But then at the end result is it just generates JSON files that then Helm file consumes. But because they actually live in Git, you basically have this process. If you do similar to what we have in the runbooks, you do like a make generate, it, pulls all the values from chef, writes out the files for every single environment, you commit it all in one commit. And then all of the pipelines run, never have to talk to chef again. The pros of that are it's a lot faster, that we're no longer depending on a service that might go down, causing Helm file to fail. Becomes easier for people to see and read, oh, where's the setting coming from? I actually found a whole bunch of settings, like 1 or 2 settings in our production environments or staging environments that weren't set because Helm file was pulling them incorrectly and then just failing silently and sending them to empty. So like Sentry configuration and things like that wasn't there. So yeah, it's, as I said, something I haven't opened an MR or any kind of concrete yet. I'm still just kind of poking around with it. But yeah, I just wanted to put out there something I've been playing with.
So there's like 3 external sources. We have the chef repo, we have secrets, and then we have GCP.
Yep.
For the chef repo, I think, it's hopefully temporary, right? Like I think once we move the front end over, there will be far fewer things to bring over. GCP is here to stay, and so is secrets. So the idea is then you would just do make generate. That would generate a JSON file, and then your JSON it would consume that JSON file.
So the make generate would actually JSON it. So it would execute like gcloud and then pass that into JSON it as well. And that's why, like, for example, you can see here, I've written like a function that's like find gcloud address. So it takes the whole JSON object with every single address and all the settings. Oh, sorry, this is probably really small.
Yeah.
And then I can just find you can just call this function, like get me the address for get HTTPS. And because I've, given us the entire JSON object from Google with every single address we have in it, becomes really easy to just, write these helper functions to find addresses or get extra information out of it. And likewise, I wrote a function for mapping the Gitaly. So the Gitaly transformation is really ugly, which we use in JQ at the moment. It's horrible. It makes it a little bit easier. I can convert Gitaly entries and just map that to arrays. So ultimately, if we think this idea has legs, this would just basically replace the values from external sources. But there's nothing saying that we couldn't make this more sophisticated and get it to the point where it's more or less one JSON document with all the conditionals where some variables are passed in per environment like we do now, and it just generates the one. So basically Helm file just consumes one JSON file out of JSON instead of like values.yaml, environment.yaml, values from external sources. we just use JSON to do all of that complicated logic around values. And then Helm file just simply executes with, okay, I've just got one value file to consume for this environment, and I'll just consume that. And, you know, it just keeps the job of doing the Helm upgrade stuff. Whereas we pull logic, environment logic out of Helm file, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good to me. For secrets, there's not much that would
I have
be
not
able to
touched
do here.
secrets. Yeah, so
Yeah.
secrets I've deliberately put to the side because, yeah, that's kind of a trickier problem. Also,
Yeah.
there is a high chance that Chef is going away as well. So that's like, you know, once again, this kind of JSON approach also means, you know, because I'm externalizing the execution of Chef, although, you know, we do that in Helm file anyway, we could just change this to point to, you know, whatever pump puts the JSON source in, it doesn't really matter. And in fact, I think when we talk in the discussions around replacing Chef for the nodes that we are going to keep, there's a bigger discussion there about how do we do things like service discovery for things like, I would personally almost argue that should we be putting Gitaly servers in console? Like, should we be relying on text files and roles for like our service discovery for Gitaly nodes and things like that? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe over time this will just become easier anyway, because a lot of it is just, oh, we need to sync a list of servers we have from Chef somewhere, and it's like, well, should we actually be having that in our Chef or Ansible or whatever system at all? Should that actually be in console where, you know, it's a live set, it's a service discovery mechanism for all these Gitaly servers?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, but the thing is that a Gitaly server doesn't need to know. So Gitaly servers are going to be managed by Chef for the foreseeable future. At least we don't have a plan to move into Kubernetes, unless if we switch to something.
No.
Other,
but
right?
there's discussion to replace the Chef configuration management. So basically, we've got a deadline on Chef. We either have to pay for enterprise license or move to something else, and that's supposed to be tackled in March or whatever. So all I'm saying is this comes out of the compliance audit or something. So all we got to do is either pay the money for Chef Enterprise or replace it. And so I guess all I'm saying is you're right. Those nodes will always exist. They will always be managed by something. So that, but yeah, what that is, I don't know.
But yeah, I was just making the point that the list of file servers, the list of Gitaly nodes, once we move the front end to Kubernetes, all that configuration will no longer, Chef will no longer need that configuration at all. Because
okay.
Gitaly nodes don't need to know about each other.
Okay. So
right. So I don't think
prefect?
That's with prefect. Prefect, that it needs to know about the nodes underneath it. So yeah, so that I guess is special, and prefect is probably, but prefect might also be moved. Prefect might also be moved to Kubernetes, right? So okay, so but anyway,
it all gets simpler. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, this looks pretty cool. Like I think we need to kind of figure out the timing, whether it makes sense to do this now or whether it makes sense to wait until we move the front end, because then a lot of the Chef stuff just goes away entirely, right?
Absolutely, I agree. I think, and then once we hit that point, we kind of, because at the moment we're like, oh, Chef is the single source of truth, let's pull from Chef. But once we do that flip, we'd almost say that, well, now the Kubernetes manifest repo is perhaps the single source of truth, and I don't know, you know, what that means. Maybe it means nothing, but yeah, that kind of is interesting when that happens.
Cool. Nice.
Cool. Thanks very much, everyone.
I'm just going to throw this in the doc if anyone's interested in having
a look.
I've
dropped it. If you got your I put the issue in, but yeah, that'd be great to see.
Where is our doc gone? Sorry, where did? Yeah, cool.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Graham. Great chatting to you.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks very much again for taking the time to have the meeting so early.
That's all right. Happy to chat. Cool. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.